Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to the Hump Day edition of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We are so glad to have you here as we get ready for some paranormal stories. Stan Williams, author extraordinaire, is here. We're going to have a great time with him, so get ready because it's going to be a good night of radio, I promise. To kick things off, let us say hello to Kitty Caddywhack in the gold medal position. Race fan with a silver. Necessary dialogue with a bronze medal tonight. Mel WD-40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show because when you're talking ghosts and paranormal, you got to go in nice and smooth. So thank you, Mel, for the lube. Don't forget to give yourself a little shot as well. Robert Lamoth, Trucker Andrew, nice to see you guys here tonight. As we start off our roll call, Shane Gord, K17, and Holy Sun is here. Holy Sun will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Be kind. This is Holy Sun's first time signing autographs, so don't rush him too much. You want a good signature. Mama Catherine, mwah, I love you, my dear. I hope you're having a great day, great night, and let's have some fun tonight just for you, okay? We love you around here. You are the best. Scrolling on down, we have Stephanie Kenny Blankenship. T-Bone, my man. Pissing me off, Evan Walters, and we haven't even started the show yet. But that's good. That means it's a good sign. Chiquetta, how are you tonight? As we scroll on down on our roll call, and up next, we say hello to Bar Madison. Wow, where have you been hiding? Good to have you back. And who else do we have here? Well, let's scroll on down and check. It's Lisa Smith, everybody. Yep, Lisa Smith is here. That's awesome. Millennium, my man, nice to see you. As we scroll on down on our roll call, up next, we say hello to Undead Jed. Nice to have you here. Flubber Lane, Operation Shutdown. And Sharon Sunshine is here. Sharon Sunshine will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Be gentle as well. It's her first time signing autographs, too. So she only signs in pink Sharpie, by the way. Pink Sharpie. Moving on down, we have up next on our list. Who is it here? Well, let's scroll down and see. We're going to scroll down a little bit more. And more. And more. And more. Al Garay over on Twitch. So excited for the ghost stories tonight that he literally bench pressed. And it's impressive. It's very impressive. 45 reps of 5 poltergeist spirits in 4 minutes. It's hard to believe he did it, but he did it. Good job. Good job, Al Gray. We're proud of you. Moon at Noon, how are you? Feed Me Seymour, nice to see you. Werewolf, thanks for coming on in. Space Cadet, good to have you here. As we scroll on down on our roll call, up next, who do we have? We got Pizza Ninja. How are you? Creepy Pasta. Nice to see you. Chris Servant. Nice to have you here. And T-Bone, thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. The super chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Be like T-Bone, everybody. Show your love. Moving on down, we have, we've said all you. Robert Anthony, nice to have you here. And Benno, nice to see you from Australia. Let's get the radio side going, everybody. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to get into the paranormal stories, creepy American ghost stories. Author Stan Williams is here to break it all down for us. I'm excited that he's here. We're in roll call on our YouTube side. Jay Truth, how you doing? Fap Nuts, nice to see you. Excuse me. And let's see here. We are caught up. We are totally caught up. We ripped through that tonight. That's good. That's good. As I try and get comfortable here. My God, this chair is terrible. Ozzy, how are you? Thank you for joining us. And what we're going to do here is remind all of you that the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Hordes up. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin knows. We're together. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Caribou Con. Get your VIP tickets right now at cariboucon.com. 12 great speakers coming to the heart of the Caribou, September 18th through 20th for Caribou Con. We have an amazing show tonight. We're talking so many different paranormal stories. Author, researcher, documentarian, writer, editor. This man does it all. Stan Williams, his website, stanwilliams.com. We're going to check out what he has to say. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will join us for another creepy story. We're going to follow that up with the weird news of the week. Terry Hall and his amazing mustache are going to be here, so make sure you stick around for that. Stan Williams is a filmmaker, author, and story consultant whose career in film and television spans more than 5 decades. Since 1972, he has overseen more than 400 projects for broadcast, industrial, and dramatic productions distributed worldwide. Holding a Ph.D. in narrative theory, a master's degree in mass communication, and a bachelor's degree in physics, Stan combines technical expertise with a deep understanding of storytelling and human psychology. This guy's amazing. Go to his website, stanwilliams.com. Let's bring him in. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time, Stan. How are you?
Thank you, David. Glad to be here. Wish I was in the mountains like you are. Sounds great.
No, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. They're a little too warm right now. You don't want the mountains too warm because that usually means forest fire. But knock on wood, pun intended, that doesn't happen. But it's good to have you here for the first time. And, you know, when I hear somebody talking about being a storyteller, a paranormal storyteller, a folklorist, a legend seeker, a paranormal road tripper, whatever you call yourself, I don't expect that guy to start his career working with NASA. I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me. You and I talked about it before the show, but it still doesn't make sense to me, man. How did that happen? How do you go from NASA, a contracted NASA scientist to writing ghost stories?
Well, it was not a plan. Science was my hobby growing up. And, I was always into astronomy and wanted to be an astronaut, but I wasn't quite smart enough to do that. I happened to go to a college in Southern Illinois called Greenville College that had a really fantastic physics program, science program. In fact, the year I graduated from Greenville, we graduated 6 physics majors, and this is out of a student population of about 800, so it was a small college. But the director of our physics department was the president of the Illinois Physics Association, and our associate professor, Hugh Sifkin, worked summers at the McDonnell Douglas Astronautics Company in St. Louis on space projects. And so when I was a senior, this was not in the plan, but when I was a senior, my nephew had driven down from Michigan to pick me up. And rather than going to the beach, we were both kind of nerds. And we ended up going down to the Houston, the Manned Spacecraft Center, and just looking around, going to the museums and all that. And on the way back home, we called our girlfriends, and I called my fiance, Pam. And she said, "You got a letter from McDonnell Douglas." I said, "Really? Why?" And she said, "Well, here." And she opened it up and read it, and it was a job offer. Dave, I had not applied for a job in the astronautics division. But Greenville and Hugh Sifkin had such a reputation that 2 of us or 3 of us were offered jobs to work in the space program at McDonnell Douglas. And I was the only one that took them up on it. And about a year later, I was in Houston writing checklists. In fact, I dug one out. I've got to show you this. This is a checklist for the Skylab systems operation. This was the manual that operated Skylab. And I ended up writing checklists and malfunction procedures for about 4 years, training astronauts. But all my interest all that time was in storytelling. And so I ended up getting into photography. And the long story short is that when Skylab was over, I was laid off. I was a junior member of the team. And all space engineers know that they need to have an avocation that they can turn into a job. And mine was photography and media, because I was always interested in that. And in fact, in college, I spent more time in the radio station as a production manager than I did working in my physics labs. And then I ended up in Michigan working as a, long story short, again, the film director and film producer for the Ford Motor Company. That transitioned into my own company, and we ended up doing interactive video and all sorts of stuff like that. And did that for about 8 or 9 years, and it got kind of boring. Like the space program was boring, because all you were doing, you were writing checklists, which is quite boring. And then once a week, you'd go and spend time with the crew and walk through the 1G trainers and show them how to use the procedures and stuff like that. But I said, man, I got to do something else. I've done it all. I think I had done 7 video training programs to General Motors and Chrysler and Ford salespeople on how to lease a car to a customer rather than to sell it to them. So, I mean, after about 7 times, that gets kind of boring. So I ended up going back to school, and I got my master's. And then I was really interested in storytelling and narrative theory and screenplays. And I had a lot of friends that worked in Hollywood by this time. And so I ended up doing a Ph.D. in narrative theory, of all things, at Wayne State University here in Detroit. They let me design my own program. Ended up writing a book that got picked up literally overnight in Hollywood. And it's still very popular. It's called The Moral Premise: Harnessing Virtue and Vice for Box Office Success. And that was in 2006. And I've since consulted on screenplays and stories that have amounted to over $1 billion at the worldwide box office. And I'm not well known, but my book is. And so I'm still doing that. So it happened that I always wanted to take what I had learned and published in The Moral Premise. And I wanted to apply that not to a screenplay, which most of my work had been in, but I wanted to apply it to a novel. And one day I'm sitting in my office here in Michigan, the one you see on the screen now, and I get a phone call from a guy with a really heavy Filipino accent calling me from Australia. And he knew I was in film and I was distributing some product down in Australia at the time. And he says, Dr. Williams, you need to do a movie about the Wizard Clip. Well, Dave, I had never heard of the Wizard Clip. I had no idea what he was talking about. And he started telling me all this stuff. And then he sent me material. And I went online. And if anybody goes online and just types in Wizard Clip into your Google search engine, you'll get hundreds of hits because it's well documented in West Virginia. And I ended up writing a screenplay. And some of my friends in LA were interested. But of course, I didn't get the money, as typical of the way it goes. And then I became really curious about what happened to one of the characters, the real characters. In fact, there are about 60 real main characters in the novel. 41 of them are real people with real histories, and find on ancestry.com. So this is not some campfire story. It's really there. Ended up taking a trip out to West Virginia, talked to historians, spent days in archives and libraries and places. And on my way back to Detroit, which was about an 8-hour drive, I said, this is not a screenplay that I can doctor up. This is a book, and it's a long novel. And so in the novel, my wife kept wanting me to say, well, Stan, what part of this is true and what is imaginary? And so I ended up putting asterisks. There are 148 asterisks throughout the novel. And each of those asterisks indicates that there's documented evidence of what immediately follows the asterisks, that something that really happened. And I'm not always clear, although at the end of the book, there is a synopsis of the story as told by the documented, stuff. Someone has put together, a woman has put together, well, there's several of these stories where they've taken all these stories and they've tried to tell the real story and what actually happened. So that's actually in the back of the book. So you can compare what is historically accurate with what my novel is, and you can tell the difference between the two. But that's how I got into it. I'm mostly a storyteller, and The Wizard Clip was just a fascinating story with all kinds of wonderful subplots and wonderful characters and historical figures. And the land where this all occurred is still celebrated today. It's in Middleway, West Virginia, and you can go there. It's nicknamed Cliptown, but it's actually Middleway, West Virginia. And on the fronts of all the old buildings are little badges that celebrate the Wizard Clip haunting that occurred back in 1794 through 1797.
I want to ask you about the paranormal, because this is a subject that interests you and intrigues you, and you are writing kind of paranormal stories here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, very much. Yeah.
Considering you come from a scientific background, was it a hard transition to buy into paranormal theory?
No, not at all. Not for me. I'm a Catholic. And one of the things that I've always understood, even when I was working on my physics degree, is that the supernatural is very much as real as the natural. And so I've always believed in angels and demons and the devil and God and all that. To me, all that was real. And of course, if you look at the Bible's a paranormal text. You have all sorts of things in the Old and New Testament that, most people refer to as miracles or things like that, but they're really paranormal events. I mean, Jesus walking through a wall, or the opening of the Red Sea, or Elijah going off in a chariot into heaven, and all sorts of stuff like that. It's all through the Bible. It's all paranormal stuff. In fact, I recently wrote a post about this. So I didn't go into a whole lot of detail, but to me, it was all very real. And the supernatural it's very real. It's there. It's always, it's around us. So no, it was never a problem for me. I always saw a collaboration and a reinforcement between the supernatural and the natural. I don't see one without the other.
That's a very broad statement, because a lot of science people would never say that. Those words would never come out of their mouths.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Some would. And I've got, in fact, some of the books I've got back here on my bookshelf are about people that talk about, the supernatural and the natural, and how there's a difference between them in terms of what we can explain. So, for instance, we talk about paranormal as being something that is under typical scientific inquiry, can't be proven or replicated necessarily, but it's there nonetheless. You cannot deny it. You were talking about UFOs and Bigfoot and stuff like that. You can't deny this stuff. It's perceived by our physical senses, and we always don't have scientific explanations for them. But you cannot deny their existence, their presence in our lives.
Have you ever had a paranormal experience?
Well, I guess, yeah. Maybe not in a. Well, I don't know. That's okay. Here's my paranormal. I have a paranormal experience at least once a week. There's a saint by the name of what's the saint's name? Padre Saint Anthony. And I mean, this sounds silly, but it happens too often for me to excuse it as nothing. But I can't find my car keys, or I can't find something else. In fact, just today, in fact, this happened. I wanted, we were talking about Skylab a little bit earlier, and I said, where are those checklists that I have? Because I have a box full of stuff from NASA. And I said, I'd like to show Dave this stuff. And I said, St. Anthony, where is that stuff? And Dave, instantly to my mind, it said, it's in the green box behind your desk. And I went there, and here was my box of checklists. And in fact, I even thought of this. I'll show you this. This is my Skylab mug. My name
Nice.
is gold. So, when you have a faith in the paranormal or the supernatural, and you take it seriously, it becomes part of your life. So, there are answers to prayer in a way, but they're paranormal experiences where you'll have a thought that you hadn't thought of for 20 years. And quite honestly, this box of my checklist is one of them. I haven't thought about these for 20 years. And you and I were talking about this. And I said, man, that'd be kind of cool to show them the checklist.
I love it.
St. Anthony, where is that? And instantly, there it was. That's a paranormal, it's transcendental meditation or meditation or medication or something like that. But it's real.
Why do you think so many people who are skeptical fear having or acknowledging these experiences?
Well, do you really think that people are fearful of acknowledging experiences? There's a lot of people that are reporting a lot of paranormal stuff in their lives. They don't always know the source of it, and the source could be good or bad. I mean, that's a lot of these paranormal stories. I mean, the Wizard Cliff haunting is about good versus evil. And my protagonist, Adam Livingston, rejected it all. He didn't want anything to do with the supernatural, but that supernatural was there. And it wasn't until it went on for 3 years, and he finally had to acknowledge that something was going on. And because of some people in his life, he realized it must be something spiritual. So he started asking ministers, and he even had some weird people from the mountains come down, and they couldn't do anything. And then finally, some priests got involved. And in fact, the first bishop of the United States, John Carroll, was even involved. And he finally had to admit this was real. It was supernatural. But most people would reject it because I think they don't want to. They don't want to put their trust in the supernatural, which you shouldn't put your trust in things that are evil or demonic. But then there are good angels too. You can trust the good. You don't have to trust the bad. And so I think some people are afraid of trusting anything that they can't see or touch or smell. The whole story about, well, I'm from Missouri. I don't believe it. You haven't heard that phrase, but I'm from Missouri is the phrase that says, well, unless I can see it and touch it and embrace it, I don't believe in it. So the materialism, but materialism is a very temporal sort of thing. And there are all sorts of things. I mean, just look at the images we get back from the Hubble and from the James Webb, telescope. And you think, man, there's something out there that is not, I I can't normally see or touch, but it's beyond what I can understand. So I think people are just afraid.
Fear plays a lot of emotion in things like ghosts, in ET contact, or having some sort of cryptid encounter. I mean, this is just something that is par for the course. We are usually fearful of things that we don't know and are unknown about.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, and I mean, every day I worry about things that I don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, but you have to stick through it. You have to say, well, that's part of life. That's the human condition. I mean, we're unique in the universe. We're not rocks. We're moral agents. We can think critically or otherwise. And so we have to look at ourselves as being unique in the universe, and we as beings are not only made of material, but we're made of spirit. And that's what gives us imagination and inspiration, and allows us to create things that don't come out of the natural environment. So, you look at a building that did not naturally occur. That was the result of human imagination and inspiration, and a lot of development of civilization over the centuries.
What's more realistic to you? UFOs and life out there in the stars, or spiritual paranormal entities?
Boy, I don't know that I could say one is different than the other. I think the paranormal, as I've explained, and the spiritual, I mean, I see paranormal as spiritual. I see that as the spiritual realm. And I've always believed in the spiritual realm. It just seems like there's something else there. It's beyond my understanding. It's beyond me. But yet I look at creation and I see something that I don't understand, but I accept it. And so paranormal and supernatural and spiritual, I see that as all one and the same, in my experience anyhow.
I've always wondered, when I first got into this, I used to think I knew what a ghost was.
Yeah.
Right? Which, dead person, hasn't crossed over.
Right.
Now I'm not so sure if we're actually viewing people or communicating with people who are spiritually on the other side, or if we are intercepting other timelines and we're the ghosts to them.
Yeah, that's possible. I've always thought of it fascinating that we all have timelines, our own life timelines, right? And yet there is a way that our Creator, I've always thought that God could look down and see all of our timelines from a beginning to the end, all simultaneously. And so that's a spiritual realm. So in part of what you just said, that's true. There are timelines, and think of a timeline rather than just being a physical being, we're spiritual beings. And those spiritual timelines exist in parallel with our material timelines. And I know my wife has had experiences where she thinks that a close friend of the family who died, comes back and tries to speak to her. Well, she's not sure whether it's really this young girl, or whether it's the girl's angel, or whether it's just a spirit. Maybe it's the Holy Ghost telling her to get up and pray for this girl or something like that. We don't know, but the spiritual realm is there. And I don't think it's different. I don't think the paranormal and the spiritual are different. I think they're one and the same. And you just have to be able to discern what's good, what's bad, stay away from the bad, and embrace and go after the good.
So it's very much intuition. We got about 20 seconds. Correct? It's about intuition.
What about, intuition is part of it. Yeah, sure. I mean, the spirits speak to our mind. And is that our imagination, or is that intuition? Is that, I don't know, you can separate it. Our consciousness is always active, and it's being pinged by both the material and the immaterial world. And so those thoughts come to us. Where do they come from? We don't know.
Stan Williams is here. You can go to his website, stanwilliams.com, that is, not com.
Yeah.
His Wizard Clip Hauntings trilogy is there. Go check it on out. It's a great read. We'll be right back. All right, we are clear. And who am I missing here? Let's just go through the list. Carol Amario, how are you? Crystal Cat, nice to see you. Still pissing me off, Evan Walters, but that's okay. Who else am I missing? Adventures with Beth, nice to see you. Jessica S. Nice to have you here as well. All right, we are caught up there. That's a good start. There's Stan. Good start.
Okay.
You having fun so far, Stan?
Oh, I like talking about stuff, like this, when you spend 10 years on something like this, you're always happy that someone wants to talk about it or think about it, It's,
That's true. All right. Rono nice to have you here. Good night, Anthony. Spiraling 69, nice to see you. People keep trudging on in. That's a good sign. All right. So what do you do when you're not writing, Stan?
Well, we did go sailing a lot, but we just sold the sailboat. So I've been trying to grow flowers out in a weed patch in front of our house. But then I read. I read a lot. I'm always reading stuff. If I'm writing, like I'm finishing up this novel now, so I'm always reading stuff that I think will inform my writing and teach me something about how to be a better writer. So I do a lot of reading. And we have grandkids. We've got 10 grandkids in the area. And we have a daughter. One of our granddaughters is 6'6", and she's going to be playing basketball at Michigan State next year. She's Miss Basketball for Michigan. So we've been going to a lot of her games and events like that. So that's beautiful. Cool. Yeah.
Beautiful. Got about 2.5 minutes.
These are terrestrial commercials running.
Yeah.
Where's the base radio station located?
We are based out of Mississauga, Ontario, Kelowna, British Columbia, Apache Junction, Arizona, which bleeds into Phoenix, which opens us up to about 2 million people.
My goodness.
On the signal. Noonan, Georgia, just a suburb of Atlanta. Where else are we? Bellingham, Washington, Ridgecrest, California. And we're working on a few others right now, too. Also, Vernal, Utah, about an hour out of Salt Lake. It's where Skinwalker Ranch is.
Well, that's really great. How many in the network?
In my network was 7 or 8.
Oh, you mentioned more than 8 already, haven't you?
No.
No, really? Well, that's pretty cool. That's a great reach. That's neat.
It equals out to about 300,000 listeners a night.
Oh, that's neat. Pretty good.
And growing.
How long have you been doing this?
We're in year 11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right, we got about 45 seconds. All right. And we got about 30 seconds. Thank you to our super chatters tonight. T-Bone, KJM, and Kitty Cattywhack. Thank you very much for your support. Greatly appreciate it. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, everybody. We do not have ugly swag. No ugly swag. Make sure you check it on out at spacedoutradio.com. And Dave has heartburn right now. Bounty Hunter, how you doing? Nice to see you. Awesome Cat Chaser. And Skip to my Lou, good morning to you. Here we go, everybody. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for tuning us in tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We are talking paranormal, American ghost stories. Yeah, I had a brain lapse there for a second. It's like I went to a different time. That was actually kind of freaky and cool at the same time. Very rare that I actually have my mind go blank, you know? It happened, though. That was actually kind of weird. Stan Williams is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get to him momentarily, but first we want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Stan Williams is here, his website, stanwilliams.com. He's got a trilogy called Wizard Clip Hauntings. He tells some pretty darn good ghost stories as well. Stan, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome, Dave. Thanks for having me.
What's the best ghost story you've ever heard?
Well, I I guess it would be Wizard Clip Haunting. It's well documented, part of American history. Just at the same time that America's Constitution was being approved and ratified, it involved some of the characters, political characters and historical characters in the Virginia, Baltimore, Washington area, and it had a lot of firsthand accounts written about it. A lot of people, there's probably 30 different stories where the major events are all the same and some of the details are different. And so anyhow, that's probably my favorite because it involved me physically and mentally for about 10 years in terms of researching it and writing a screenplay and then writing the novel, and now I'm probably in year 13 promoting it, stuff like that. So that's, so I wrote about it.
When you look at a good ghost story, it's easy to make one up. It's easy to use your imagination and allow your science fiction to come through. That's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But what makes a good ghost story, in your opinion, coming from a truth perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. No one's asked me that question, but I have an answer, at least one that I can try. I think a good ghost story is not, well, for instance, what's not a good ghost story to me is probably more popular. And I understand this is my opinion. I'm a story guy, right? And so I work on screenplays and things that have to be popular with the public, so that the public will talk about it and come to the movie theater and see it. And what really makes a good story is what also makes a good ghost story, and that is that you just don't have hauntings. So, for instance, let me see if I've got. Yeah, here we go. So, we're all familiar with this story, right? the Amityville Horror, right? So what's interesting about the Amityville Horror is that you have a lot of explanation of the hauntings and the poltergeist activity, but you have very little mention of what caused it or what was the resolution at the end. There's a couple mentions in the book about transcendental meditation and how the Lutzes, I think the family were involved in TM, but no explanation about it very much at all. It's just kind of an aside. And there's no resolution at the end of it. It just kind of fades away. But yet Amityville Horror was very popular, and a number of movies have been made, and TV shows, and of course the book was a huge success. But to me, as a story guy, what really makes a good story is that there is a cause and effect relationship. It's because everything that happens in our life has a cause. And we are always trying to figure out, when we read something about in the news that something happened horrifically or good, we say, well, what caused that? What was the seminal orientation? Where did that come from? And where's it going? And what happened to the person? So I think that's what makes a good story and what makes a good ghost story. So for instance, in Wizard Clip Haunting, we have these poltergeist activities of this home that's haunted this family, the Livingston family, for 3.5 years. And in many of the documented cases, it'll talk about the hauntings and the poltergeist activity and the clipping of the cloths, which I'll get into later. But it doesn't always explain where it came from or why. But there is information about that, at least as a novelist, it was evident to me. So for instance, one of the hauntings were primarily on the Livingston's farm from 1794 to 1797. But if you dig through the historical documents, as I did, and you talk to historians and people that I did, you discover that there was something that happened in 1760 that is probably connected to all this. And that is the murder of a man on the land where all these hauntings took place and how he was buried there. And the deed to the land was forged by a sojourner and falsely registered in the Martinsburg County Courthouse, or in the Berkeley County Courthouse. And we know that that's connected to the Wizard Clip if you do the research, because when Livingston's house was an infestation. It wasn't a possession. It was an infestation. And when it is exorcised in 1797 by these two priests, he is so enthralled with the relief that he gets that he donates 35 acres, which is 10%, like a tithe of his land and his property, to the keeping of a Catholic priest, because it was a Catholic priest that exorcised the land. That land was held up. He tried to give it to the Catholic Church, but it was held up in the courts for over 100 years because of this fraudulent deed that was tied to this murder. And we know about that. That's documented. And it's not until the 1948, actually, it's tied up in the courts for 100 years, but there's a period of time after he deeded it and before it was actually taken over by the church to create something from. There's a period of time you decide. So it's not until the 1960s that the land has been free and clear for maybe 20, 30 years, and legally the churches, and the church decides, okay, let's make a retreat center. Let's do something with this land. Today, if you go to Middleway, West Virginia, you will encounter something called Priestfield. It's a 40-acre retreat center that's very active. They've got dozens of cabins and meeting rooms and a couple of chapels and a commercial kitchen. It's a beautiful place with wilderness trails along the Opicon River. And that's the resolution. So you have this cause that I link in the book, because most of the stories don't, but the research shows it, that goes back to 1760. And then you have the resolution of this donation of this land. And it becomes finally in the 60s, and today it's very active in Middle Way, Virginia, the Priestfield Retreat Center. But there's another critical element in the middle of this. The hauntings begin, and this is well documented. The hauntings begin after a stranger, a sojourning stranger, comes to the Livingston's farm, and the inn in Smithfield, Smithfield was the name of the town before it was Middleway. A stranger comes to Smithfield, and he's on a walking journey from, I suspect, from Louisiana to Baltimore. And he can't find a place in the inn. And so he's told to go to the Livingstons. Maybe they have a room. And in fact, they do. They have a guest room. In the middle of the night, this guy is dying. He realizes he's dying. And he starts banging on the wall. He wakes up the Livingstons and he says, I'm dying. You need to get me a priest so that I can have last rites. And the Livingstons are absolutely incensed. The Livingstons are part of a very large segment of America at this time in history that hated anything to do with religion, or hated especially Catholics. And this ties back to the penal laws in England and how they persecuted the Catholics and the clerics, and how even for many years after that, it was against the law to be a Catholic or be a priest in Ireland or any part of England. And you could be killed if they discovered you were a priest in this time in England. You could be killed lawfully. You'd be hung up.
I never knew that.
Yes. Oh, it's terrible. It's well documented. It's just all sorts of stuff. In fact, it's so funny. I can't remember the lyrics, but there's a funny song about this Anglican minister in England. And depending on who was king, he would change religious faiths. So he'd be Catholic, then he'd be Protestant, then he'd be Catholic, then he'd be Anglican, back and forth. Because he realized that if he didn't become one or the other, he would probably be killed. He'd be murdered. He'd be strung up. They would quarter them and dice them up and hang them on poles all across the country. So anyhow, that was true of the Livingstons. The Livingstons were part of that milieu. And they got really incensed that this stranger, not only was he Catholic, but he turned out to be an incognito priest. And they refused to get him another priest. Well, they didn't know a priest. The priests weren't around. There were very few. In fact, in all of early America, I think there were only about 20, there were 25 priests when John Carroll became bishop in the in the early 1770s. Well, this was after the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, all that. So it was 1780. Yeah. It was late 1780, 1789. And there were only like 25 priests. Now, there were a lot of fake priests, and that was John Carroll's big problem, because there was a lot of men that were coming into the United States trying to have a job, and they said, well, I'll be a priest. But they weren't, So he had that problem. And so anyhow, so what happens is this guy dies. And Livingston refuses to get him a priest. And this guy, and this stranger, curses the Livingstons. And he dies. And then before he dies, he asks God to forgive him and all that sort of stuff. But he curses them. And immediately the haunts begin. And the haunts, they go on for 3.5 years. And I can tell you later about how it's resolved. But your question was, what makes a good story? And I think There's a cause, there's a middle, and there's an end. It's like when we talk about story theory, we say, well, there's a beginning, middle, and end. But, it's like the story of the protagonist is chased up a tree, and then the antagonist throws rocks at him. And then in Act 3, he gets down out of the tree and chases the antagonist off. So there's a cause, there's the middle part, and there's a resolution. So that all those elements were in all the documented history that I came across as I researched this for about 8 years and visited the locations and talked to historians. But no one had put it together so that it fit. And of course, you had to novelize it because, you have to make things up to make it all fit together, because you've got these documented sources, but you've got to tie them together so it's logical. So that's what the novel does. And I think that's what makes, to answer your question, that's what makes a good story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
You mentioned curses in there. Curses go back thousands of years.
Yeah.
Do you buy curses? Do you think they're real?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Very much. Yeah. you want to avoid them. Well, there's curses that are by people that are credible. There are curses that people just hate you. So there can be curses that are real and that you have to you may need an exorcist, or something like that.
What are some famous curses that you've looked at?
Well, I haven't really researched curses, so to speak, or nor have I done a great deal of paranormal research outside of the wizard clip thing that I spent so many years on. So, you got to remember, I'm first a storyteller, and only secondarily did I come into telling these paranormal stories about the wizard clip. So I'm not an expert on curses for sure, although I want to. Well, you have some in the Bible, that are definitely, scary sort of things, where you just you do things that you're not supposed to, and a curse comes upon you, and you just. Well, the Bible warns us. It says, don't blaspheme the Holy Ghost. That would be a curse, right? If you take something that's holy and real and powerful and you curse it or ignore it, or you can darn well believe that something bad is going to come in your life, and it's going to require some work to get out of that.
I think that curses are real.
Yeah, no,
I really do. When somebody despises you for whatever reason that they choose to, and they send continuous negative energy over to you, I think the human intuition can pick that up.
Yeah, I think so. And that may not be a curse in a deeply spiritual or supernatural way, but it's definitely what you just said, especially if you accept it. Especially if it bothers you. If it's like Taylor Swift talks about, shake it off. It's like, if people are always criticizing you, if you believe that your identity is tied to their belief in you or their hatred of you, that's definitely going to be a curse upon your life in an indirect sort of way. But if you're able to have enough faith in yourself, know that, well, that's not me, that's not who I am, and I'm not going to accept that, then it's probably going to affect you less. But yeah, it can affect you. I mean, it's like a kid growing up. If mom and dad, well, we've had family. Okay, this is probably not a curse. Well, it could be a supernatural way. If you've got parents and the parents are always telling you as a child, you're going to amount to no good. You're never going to do anything well. And they keep telling you that time and time again, and they're always criticizing you. You're likely going to end up in prison, or you're ending up unemployed because you don't have any faith in yourself, because you've believed those curses, you've accepted them, you've embraced them, you've identified with them. But if you don't identify with them, if you have enough faith in yourself as a person with character and principles and a goal in your life, that you're going to toss those off and you're not going to accept them. But you're definitely right. I think negative energy and people talking bad at you, if you accept it, that is going to affect you negatively.
I would totally agree with you on that. Our guest tonight, Stan Williams. StanWilliams.com is his website, where you can find all of his great books looking into everything paranormal and supernatural. We got about 6 minutes to go here. I'd love for you to tell us one of your ghost stories that you've looked at.
Let's see. I guess the ghost story in a traditional sense would be, the wizard clip. I mean, do you want me to start telling you that story?
Yeah, if we got to carry it over to the next, we can do that.
Okay. All right. Well, let me start in on the wizard clip, and you stop me, and we'll pick it up, in the next segment. Okay. So the wizard clip happens when there's this murder on the land. The demon, and I've fictionalized this, the demon that is responsible for the murder and the burial of this innocent man on the land, he is cursed by Satan and put into the ground. He is still free spiritually to influence people, but he cannot do poltergeist stuff. He's restricted until he's unearthed by Adam Livingston. And when that happens, that's when the stranger comes, and the stranger dies. He can't get a priest, and suddenly, as soon as he dies, soot and black vapor comes in through the windows. And as reported in the documented documents of the story, immediately the biggest poltergeist activity that continues for 3 years is the clipping of cloth into crescent moons, very precisely cut crescent moons. Hundreds of people saw these. They experienced them. The names are associated with them. And they would happen with, like, they would hear the clipping. It sounded like, they called it the scissors bird, like there was this chirping noise. Well, what it was the sound of shears, clipping like this, scissors. And
like Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, it was something like that. But they would discover the older the cloth, the more likely it would be clipped, and it would be riddled. The cloth would be riddled with crescent moon shapes, precisely cut out of the cloth. And this went on for 3 years. And one of the best stories, or one of the typical stories, is a real person by the name of Henrietta Argyle. She was the wife of a barrister in Martinsburg. You can look her up on Ancestry.com. She is a rich lady. She comes down in a carriage, which is about a 3-hour drive by carriage from Martinsburg. Today, it's like 10 minutes in a car, to visit Mary Ann Livingston, because she's heard these stories about the poltergeist activity and the scissors and other stuff that went on. And she doesn't believe it. She comes, she has tea with Mary Ann, and before she comes into the house, she takes off her scarf, little silk French scarf that she'd been wearing over her head on the trip down in the carriage, and puts it in her reticule, little purse, to protect it, right? And so nothing happens when she's in the house. She comes out of the house, she's had a nice tea with Mrs. Livingston, and she laughs. She says, well, I guess I can put on my scarf. Nothing happened. She opens up her reticule, takes out the scarf, and it's riddled with crescent moon cutouts. And she freaks out. I mean, that's one of the stories. But there are other things where the Livingstons are in bed and they feel the comforter, the quilt on their bed vibrating in the middle of the night. And they hear the clipping, and they turn on a lantern and they pull back the covers, and the sheet that's laying on top of their legs is being cut and literally riddled with crescent moons. So that's the sort of thing that happens throughout the life of this whole haunting. And that's where the name Wizard Clip comes from. And so on the wooden badges that are on the doors, or actually on the front of the homes throughout Middleway, West Virginia, and you can see these today. There's a picture of one on my website. There's a picture of a little man, supposedly the wizard, with a tall hat, like he's a magic guy. He's there. There's a crescent moon, and there's a pair of scissors. So every October, the second Saturday, Middleway celebrates this whole thing with a street fair, and hundreds of booths are set up, and thousands of people come. I've been there and exhibited a couple years, and it's still celebrated today. So that's the beginning of the hauntings and the poltergeist activity.
What do you think poltergeists are?
I think they're demons. I think they're demons that have come to haunt us and to scare us. And they're given certain powers. In the book, I hypothesize through the story of the demon. The demon is identified in the book. He talks through letters, and you can kind of, it's like you identify the antagonist, and you know what the antagonist's intent is. And in the book, the demon's purpose is to get Adam Livingston to curse God just before he dies, so that Adam's soul can be taken to perdition. So I think demons are there to try to scare us and to try to get us to believe in them and to trust in them.
Right.
That's what the whole Ouija board's about, you know.
Oh, yeah. The old Ouija board. Everybody has a story of a friend of a friend of a cousin of a friend who had something go very, very wrong. Stan Williams is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are 1 hour down, 1 hour to go with this great author. You can find his books at stanwilliams.com. We'll be right back for hour number 2. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. I'll be right back, everybody.
Our merch is Bigfoot approved. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, we have hoodies, we have socks, we have hats, we have stickers, and so much more. Whatever you're looking for, we have you covered. Why just be a fan of the paranormal when you can buy Spaced Out Radio merch and look the part? Our merch ain't ugly, folks. Check out the Spaced Out Radio store. Find the link in the description below.
Lurking within the forested region of the 108-mile ranch, where the worlds of the normal and paranormal collide. CaribouCon is waiting for you, bringing together a panel of renowned experts in the paranormal, cryptid research, and UFO phenomena fields. Get ready for a spine-tingling weekend in the heart of British Columbia. Enjoy fascinating discussions, presentations, tours of local haunted areas, and skywatching. Learn from investigators, authors, and enthusiasts who explore everything from ghost hunting techniques to sightings of Sasquatch and beyond. Whether you're a seasoned paranormal researcher or just love a good spooky story, this is your chance to connect with fellow enthusiasts in one of BC's most mysterious areas. Tickets are on sale now. Grab yours before they're gone. Visit cariboucon.com for details, tickets, and updates.
Are you ready to dive into the weird and wonderful world of cryptids, cartoons, and chaos? Meet Dirty Filth, Spaced Out Radio's resident cartoonist and master of the mysterious. Every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, join him live on the Spaced Out Radio YouTube channel for Cryptid Cartoons with Dirty Filth, a hilarious hour where he sketches bizarre beasts, shares mind-bending stories, and battles his mischievous cats. Whether you're a UFO enthusiast, paranormal fan, or just love quirky art, Dirty Filth filters the universe through his unique lens, creating cartoons that capture the strange, dark, and supernatural. Follow Dirty Filth on X at Filth1 or Facebook at Dear Filth for more filthy fun. Find his link in the description below.
Spaced Out Radio wants to hear from you. We love our community, and your voice truly matters. Drop a comment after every show and let us know what you thought. Agree with our guests? Tell us why. Disagree? We want to hear that too. We read every single comment. Jump into the live chat during the broadcast and be part of the conversation in real time. Got a killer topic idea? Your suggestions help shape the show. And if you want to take it even further, join our Patreon for bonus content and direct feedback opportunities with Dave and the team. This is your show as much as it is ours. Whether you're a longtime listener or brand new, we want your thoughts, your questions, and your ideas. And let's keep building this incredible community together. Spaced Out Radio, where the conversation never ends. What are you waiting for? We're listening.
With 5 explorable Gold Rush era buildings said to be home to spirits of a time forgotten, the 108-mile heritage site in the heart of BC's Caribou region offers a unique opportunity for thrill seekers and history buffs. For an evening of historical fun, step into our guided ghost tours, where spine-chilling stories of Gold Rush legends and unexplained encounters come alive. For those craving even more, inquire with us about conducting a hands-on paranormal investigation of your own. And if you're truly brave, book our haunted sleepovers. Spend the night at our B&B inside the McNeil House to truly experience this historical landmark and its ghostly secrets firsthand. For booking or inquiries, go to haunted108.com.
All right, we are back. We got about 45 seconds. Stan is with us here. Let's unmute his mic. And Carol Francie, welcome to SOR Chat again. Nice to see you. Who else jumped in here a little bit late? John Jackson, thanks for coming on in. What in Tarnation? Nice to see you. And I think we're caught up. I think we are. Maybe. Quick poll here. Yeah, CaribouCon is going to be awesome. September 18th through 20th. Get your tickets now at cariboucon.com. Check it on out. We have 5 seconds. Here we go, everybody. We are into hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us on in, wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network, our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Grabby, or is it Grabble? It's Grabble, everybody. Grabble is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's bring in our guest, good friend Stan Williams, stanwilliams.com. He's got a great trilogy of paranormal stories called Wizard Clip Haunting. You can find him at stanwilliams.com. Thank you for joining us, Stan.
Thank you, Dave. It's been fun so far. Let's keep doing it.
Okay, we could definitely do that. We can definitely do that. You know, you write a lot about different subjects, from religion to nonfiction to fictional books, everything that's kind of in between. You know, yet the paranormal is something that stands out, obviously, for us here. Why do you think people should accept the paranormal as a real phenomena going forward? Because there are a lot of people out there who say, I've never had an experience. I don't really know if this stuff is real.
Well, I think it's real. Or see, that wasn't your question. Why should we accept it? I think we should accept it, the paranormal and the spiritual, because we're actually spiritual beings. The reason that you and I are talking about the paranormal tonight, and the reason so many people investigate it, is because I think deep down in their souls, they know that the paranormal or the spiritual or the supernatural, however you want to describe it, is real. It's not just a figment of our imagination. There are things, whether it's the UFO videos that the governments are releasing lately, or whether it's our imagination, or whether it's watching a movie. Those ideas come from somewhere. And not everything that we imagine. I mean, when something is imagined over and over and over again, and people have similar experiences, at some point you have to say, okay, this is real. It's happened throughout the centuries. I mean, it goes all the way back to ancient times in the biblical. You have King Saul consulting a medium, and it doesn't turn out well for him. But that goes all the way back. That's thousands of years old. Well, it's real. You know, it's there. You watch whether it's a spiritual drama about a sandal and robe thing, you know, like the Passion of the Christ or something like that, or whether it's an Amityville horror movie. Those things come from somewhere that is real, that are real. Because we all experience them, whether they're spiritual or whether they're demonic or whatever. And so, and the Wizard Clip story, which is well documented and involved a host of dozens of historical characters, and it's well done. You say, okay, this wasn't someone's imagination. In fact, a lot of people that came to Adam Livingston's home, they didn't believe it. They didn't believe it. And they came and they would blame the light. For instance, in the book, we have actual letters between John Carroll and we got a little fly here, dive bombing my microphone. Between John Carroll, the bishop, the original, the first bishop here in the United States, and Dennis Cahill. They did not like each other. We have communication or letters and writing by Father Prince Augustin Demetrius Golitsyn. He was a Russian prince. He became the first fully educated and ordained priest here in the United States under John Carroll's bishopship. But you have these things, and I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
John Bishop.
Boy, I just totally had a senior moment there.
Yeah, I had one in the last half hour. Man, I mean, what's happening here tonight? You're not wanting us to talk about the science and the modalities of the paranormal.
Yeah, why is it real? Well, it keeps happening, and you have these documented things, and you just say, why does this stuff keep happening? Why are the experiences the same? Why is the evidence the same? It's like the scientific method. You say, well, you can't prove this stuff scientifically, but there is a scientific way that you can prove it. In the scientific method, you have you observe something, and then you have an hypothesis, and you say, well, I think this is because of that, and I think I can recreate it that way. And so you run an experiment, and the experiment has certain results, either positive or negative or ironic. And then you say, and you analyze the results, and you say, well, maybe I need to readjust my hypothesis. Well, this is what we're doing in paranormal investigations. This is what we do with science. But when the experiences are the same over hundreds and thousands of years, so we have stories of the paranormal, and we have stories of the occult and things like that go all the way back into the Old Testament and in Egypt and of course King Saul and the Israelite people and all that sort of stuff. When those events still parallel and look just like things today, we have to say, okay, it's real. We got to deal with this. What should we do with it? What does it matter? So you asked, what was a poltergeist? Well, I think it's a demon. I mean, it could be an angel. It could be something sent by God to kind of as a premonition to warn us. In fact, Adam Livingston, our protagonist of the Wizard Clip, he was somewhat of a mystic. And it's evident by you looking at the stories that he started having premonitions about things that were unclear. They were foggy. He didn't understand what they meant. And that was because his faith in God and his faith in the supernatural and faith in the paranormal, if you will, it wasn't there. He didn't believe it. He was a huge skeptic about anything, about any of all this stuff. And so was his wife, Mary Ann. But after a while, it keeps happening. It's predictable. Other people observe it. And finally he comes to an understanding that, okay, this is real. I have to accept it. Now, what do I do with it? And that's what this story develops into. But that's our life. I mean, we have premonitions like Adam Livingston did. And then after the exorcism in the book, it's well documented that after the exorcism, the voice that was the premonition that he couldn't understand earlier in the years, suddenly the voice is crystal clear. And it tells him that someone is dying and that he has to go and do certain things to save their life. And for 6 or 7 years thereafter, after the exorcism, the voice comes and catechizes the family in the Catholic faith. Except Mary Ann Livingston didn't believe it. Everyone else in the family and around said, yeah, this is real. I'm going to accept it. And in fact, Adam Livingston years later meets John Carroll. This is 8 years after all this stuff happens. And John Carroll talks to him, and they have coffee or something, I guess. I don't know how long they met, but it was a period of time, because John Carroll writes, and we have this document. He says, I have never met a Catholic layman that is so well versed and knowledgeable about the faith of the Catholic Church. There wasn't a priest teaching him. I mean, Cahill and Gallitzin do a little bit of instruction before he's baptized, but this goes on for years. And Livingston knows the faith very well. And Carroll says, I can't believe it. Why? How does this happen? Well, it's because the paranormal was real and it came into his life. Now, here's the interesting thing, documented in a very interesting way. After the exorcism and all that, a priest who has replaced Cahill gets in trouble with the bishop, and he's kicked out of some churches, and he's forced to be a priest simply in Shepherdstown and not in Hagerstown, where he was first established. And Carroll puts this other priest by the name of, I think it's Phelan. He puts Phelan in Hagerstown, and Phelan doesn't believe any of this. So Phelan comes down and he visits with the Livingstons. As well, Adam's off working the farm, but he visits with Mary Ann Livingston, and she's the skeptic. And she says, the haunts are still going on. They haven't changed. The exorcism didn't work. The Catholic priests are just fake. And so, and what she's referring to is the voice, see? And so Phelan writes a letter, and the letter is in the public domain in the local newspaper. I quote it in the book. And he says, well, I just think it's the wife. I don't think it's anything supernatural. I think the wife is just pranking the family and the neighbors and everybody and the priests, and it's all fake, and it's just the wife. Mary Ann reads the letter in the newspaper, and she next week or 2 weeks later writes a scathing letter back, and it's printed, and I have it in the book. She says, it's not me. It's really going on, and he's lying, and I don't know what his problem is, but this priest is just as mixed up as all the other Catholic priests. So there you have evidence again of it's real stuff. It's really going on, and you've got to discern what is it and what am I going to do with it.
How do we deal with it? How do we move forward, accept it, and realize that this is a part of the human experience?
Yeah, it's part of the human condition. Well, I think you have to understand that we're as much as we're material beings, we're spiritual beings. We have a spiritual soul, and that soul can either tend toward the bad or tend toward the good. We can believe and trust in demons, or we can believe and trust in angels and God and all that sort of stuff. And you make your choices. I think that's how you have to do it. You have to study. You study wisely, and you don't embrace things that could be dangerous to your soul. Adam Livingston and others embraced things that were dangerous to their soul. They were warned against it. And one of the things that happens, well documented. And here's part of the story. Cahill, I won't go, there's too much detail to explain how we get into this, but Livingston meets Cahill because of some dreams and nightmares. And the McSherrys take him to meet their priest, Dennis Cahill, up in Shepherdstown. And Cahill is he thinks the neighbors are pranking him until something happens that I explain in the book. And Cahill says, okay, I'll come down and take a look. Cahill comes down to the house during a new moon, and the poltergeist activity is active. The porch is vibrating. The clipping sounds are wild. When he gets inside, you start hearing wagons and horses stampeding around the building, and the building is shaking. There's black vapor that comes up through the floorboards. And Cahill goes through the house and blesses it with holy water. And it's a battle. It's a real battle because it's real. And he believes it and he does it. And he's able to contain the demonic spirit. And the hauntings and the poltergeist activity go away for a period of time, or they go away right away, actually. After about an hour in the house blessing and fighting this demon. And Cahill says to Livingston, Mr. Livingston, we've been able to subdue these spirits, but here's what you need to do going forward. You need to be baptized, taught and baptized in the Catholic faith. You need to partake of the sacraments, the Eucharist, confession, so forth and so on. And you need to do it religiously. If you don't do it, this haunting is going to come back worse than it started. Now, this is not fictionalized. This is documented. Livingston is so happy, and his wife is happy, the skeptic wife, right? She's so happy. She persuades Livingston, Adam, her husband, just to forget the priest, forget all this sort of stuff. We've solved the problem. It's gone. Let's just do nothing. So Livingston does not follow Father Dennis Cahill's advice. 2 weeks later, during a new moon, his barn is struck by a falling star or a meteorite or something, and it explodes in a cataclysmic thing. The cows explode. The horses, most of the horses escape, but some of the horses are killed. It's totally burned down. And it's at that point that he says, I got to believe Cahill. And it's at that point that Dennis Cahill submits to the instruction between Gallitzin and Cahill. He and his family are baptized, except Marianne is not baptized. She again rejects it. And then they go through the exorcism, which is a whole nother story about how that happens. Because you see, Bishop Carroll does not like Cahill because they have this falling out, and he will not approve Cahill to do the exorcism. He approves Gallitzin, but Gallitzin's too nervous. The poltergeist activity is so strong that he can't hold the rite of exorcism book steady enough to read it. And he says to Livingston, he says, we need a more robust priest. And Livingston would say, well, that would be Cahill. He said, well, but Cahill can't do the exorcism. So Cahill and Gallitzin get together and they decide, but we can do something else that the bishop has not forbidden. And that's, we can celebrate Mass in the house. And that's what they do. That's the climactic event in the book. And that's what exorcises the demon from the house. And Bishop Carroll's a little upset about it, but he can't argue about the results because it's historically verifiable. So that's what we need to do. We need to reject the evil and not let it occupy us. And we need to embrace the good and let that occupy us. And then we will have wisdom and we'll hear the voice clearly, so to speak, and avoid the premonitions that get us in trouble.
We got about 5.5 minutes to go before we have to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, author Stan Williams is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And just hearing you kind of break down the way the phenomena can interact with us, it makes me wonder, from your perspective, does that mean that there is some sort of spiritual warfare going on as we speak?
Oh, absolutely. I've always thought that. And maybe I thought that here's an example of how I see paranormal. I see paranormal as anything that's supernatural that comes into our material existence that we cannot explain through science. You know, we can't necessarily repeat it. But as a child, my mother was born of missionary parents in India. And she tells, and after she came home and she has a family, and she wasn't a missionary or anything like that, but she was friends with Rebecca Beebe. And Rebecca Beebe was the missionary that took over the mission in India after my grandmother had left. This sort of stuff happens all the time. It happened all the time. Mother would get, one day at dinner, my mom would say, and we're in Detroit, or in the Detroit metropolitan area. Rebecca Beebe's in India, all the way around the other side of the world. And my mother would say, and she didn't use the word premonition, but that's what it was. She has my intuition, or I have a feeling or a sense, it was a premonition, that Rebecca Beebe is in trouble and we need to pray for her. So that night we got around the living room and my dad read some Bible verses and we would pray for Rebecca Beebe. And we did not know what we were praying for. 3 weeks later, because this is how long it took letters to get to us, they were sometimes by boat and sometimes these real thin tissue paper, airmail sort of tissues. We got a letter from Rebecca Beebe that details the night that a leopard came into the compound and was attacking people. And suddenly some men woke up and chased the leopard off. That was the very night my mother had that premonition that we prayed for her. So that's an example of the supernatural that was just very evident in my life growing up. And so it's hard to deny that. It happens all the time. So that's why I think it's real.
When you say spiritual warfare, are you more good versus evil, God versus the devil, or just humans versus their own consciousness versus brain?
Well, I think it's the same. They're related, definitely related. Definitely, I think the underlying premise or the underlying reality that drives all this is God versus Satan. And then you have angels and you have demons. But the angels and demons, and this is quite evident in the Wizard Clip book too, they influence people. They influence people. And people do things that are good and that are bad. And I think it's warfare. It's good versus evil, but it boils down, it gets down into the things that you mentioned earlier about people saying negative things about you and criticizing you and putting you down, and the terrible things that happen on social media. And we have kids that are killing themselves because their friends have so criticized them on social media. I mean, that's spiritual warfare, but it's down on a physical, personal, intimate level, everyday level with us. So I think it's all connected, and one influences the other. And so in the Wizard Clip, I tried to make this obvious in the Wizard Clip because it's obvious in the documented history. But when you try to put all the stories together and make sense of it so that it kind of logically flows, there are four kinds of influences. One is the firsthand things that we experience. These are the demonic influences that get into our life. Demons and angels are moral agents, and we are moral agents. We get to choose between right and wrong, good and evil. And so those influences come to us and we do things that affect other people. You wouldn't call them supernatural, but I think they have a supernatural origin. And then there are the paranormal things, the things that happen spiritually that we can't explain. Like in the Livingston's novel, the stories are that they'd have friends over for dinner, and the floor would start to shake, and dishes would fall off of the hutch with the china, or the table covering would be clipped into crescent moons, or the loom would start up by itself, and or there'd be horses and wagons circling the house and making it vibrate. Those are all direct paranormal influences by the demon who's trying to get a hold of us and explain to us. And then there's more explicit things. It's when we start having visions of demons, or we have visions of angels. And this was definitely true in Livingston's life. He had these nightmares. In some cases, they were demonic, and sometimes they were angelic. So you have to take all that together, and it's all spiritual warfare, but it affects us at different levels.
And on that note, we have Stan Williams for another half hour here on Spaced Out Radio, breaking down all things paranormal, more the scientific side of how this all works, why it is working, and why it's happening now. Listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, we are clear, my friend.
How's it going, Dave?
We're doing great. That half hour was very fast. Hi, Dispatch. How you doing? Nice to see you. I'm having a lot of fun with you, Stan. I like you. You're smart.
I don't know.
If you were here in studio, I'd shake your hand.
Well, I like being in studios. I whenever I have an option, I'll go to the studio because I think it's so much more personal. But this Zoom thing and what is this StreamYard thing? Boy, the technology has come along so incredible. When I first started doing consulting in LA, we would try to do, it wasn't Zoom at that time, it was something else, I forget. And it didn't work. And then we tried FaceTime, and that works sometimes. And then Zoom came out, and I thought, wow, they've really got this. And now this StreamYard is good too. This is the second time I've been on a StreamYard thing. But it's pretty amazing, what you're doing.
Thank you.
And then you're integrating it with like terrestrial radio or with YouTube. I mean, YouTube is just phenomenal. That all this stuff, it's all one. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
How long have you been doing YouTube stuff?
Probably about 7 years. And I'll be blunt with you about it. The one thing that I hate about YouTube is just when you get a hang of things, they change it all up. And it's like that old Microsoft saying, if it isn't broken, we're fixing it anyways.
Well, you know the joke about, have you seen the meme of, it's a picture of a living room with pictures on the wall and furniture and stuff. And the caption is, and there's a hand that enters, and the caption says, I'm moving one object, and they touch something and everything moves all over the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife is frustrated as heck. She communicates with all her friends and stuff with her iPhone. She doesn't like to use the computer because all her friends don't have computers. And so they're all on text and stuff. And every once in a while, and she hates Apple upgrades because when Apple doesn't upgrade on the iPhone, she can't find stuff. It doesn't work. She's got to learn it all over again. So it's difficult.
That it is. That it is. All right.
Are we getting into the story enough? I'm trying to put in anecdotes about the story and stuff.
No, you're doing great.
Okay.
You're doing great. I'm having a lot of fun here, man. I just do so many things at once during the show, like multitasking everything.
Yeah. And you've got 2 more hours after this?
An hour and a half. Then we'll end here, and then I will jump on the air for a few minutes in New York at WABC.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's that about? Is that this show?
Not this show. I'll go on with another guy as a guest for a few minutes. So a guy named Walter M. Sterling on the other side of midnight. It's called. Sometimes I'm only there for 5 minutes. Then times like last night I was on for like 22 minutes. So
you're a guest. You're a guest on his show then.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Here you are in British Columbia, and he's in New York, and is there a delay between us? I'm not noticing that. Although when I stop talking, it's
we're in real time, you and I.
That's great. That's incredible.
Yeah. We're coming back in 20 seconds.
Okay.
All right. Thank you to our super chatters tonight. Cat Chaser, KJM, Kitty Cattywhack, and T-Bone. Thank you for the love. Here we go. All right, we're into the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. I'm the captain of this spaceship. Yes, I wear tinfoil. And yes, I'm going to take you down a magical road of the strange and weird. Tonight, our guest, Stan Williams, author, documentarian, and his website, stanwilliams.com. We're talking all things paranormal. And Stan, right before the break, we were kind of getting into this whole spiritual warfare aspect. You know, good versus evil, devil versus God, man versus himself, people loving soccer versus people hating soccer. And I fall into the latter there, okay, because it's World Cup time, and this is where I get some of my best insults in on soccer fans. All right, but the idea behind the paranormal world, I think a lot of us really strain to define what the term or word paranormal really means. We can sit there and say it's not normal, it's paranormal. But does that definition mean a lot more than just something very minute?
Well, I think the paranormal is simply a physical manifestation of something that's not physical, that's immaterial. In other words, there's something in the reality. Think of the world. I've my teenage years, maybe it's just my spiritual upbringing and the stories and the crazy stories my mother told about India and being a kid growing up there and all that. But I've always thought of there's the physical world and there's the spiritual world. And every once in a while, something spiritual comes down and gets in our physical world. And this whole thing, the material and the immaterial, is reality. It's everything. And quite honestly, I think when you look at the James Webb or the Hubble, telescope images and stuff like that, there's perfect physical evidence that reality is a lot bigger than what we can experience materially here on Earth. And so paranormal is kind of a strange name because it sounds like, well, it's not normal. It's like metadata. It's not like this YouTube video that you're going to post here. You have the video, but then there's the metadata that explains what the video is, and there's the super metadata that makes it work on your TV, on your computer screen. But paranormal is kind of like that. Both are real. You need the super metadata, you need the metadata, and you need the video itself. It's all got to work together. Some of it you see, some of it you don't see. We go outside, I go outside, and we can look at the stars. I love a starry night without the city lights, and just it's amazing to look at all the stars. But my goodness, every one of those stars is a galaxy or hundreds of galaxies, the space, so it's what we can see and what we sense. We cannot sense all the mechanical things going on inside of our cells in our body, but there's just amazing mechanical, and we think of chemical things, but they're mechanical things. There's little engines that are replicating our DNA and making new cells. And it's only been in recent years that we've been able to understand what that is. It's invisible, but it's real. And so whether it's material like the cells of our body, or whether it's invisible like the galaxies that we can't see, or whether it's the spiritual realm that comes down and creates what we call sometimes miracles, but they're paranormal. Paranormal and miracles are pretty much can be the same thing. And they can originate from something that's evil or from something that's good. And we have to constantly be aware and discern and study so that we can know the difference and stay away from the bad and embrace the good.
Do spirits usually play that role, though? Because, for a lot of people, they think they're talking to, a dear loved one who passed away, or maybe a friend or somebody that they care about on the other side. Yet we don't know who we're talking to. That
No.
dear old friend who we think is, maybe it's Uncle Bob, maybe it's, Aunt Franny, or whatever it may be, whoever that spirit may be. And yet it's some trickster over there who is just playing mind games with you.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is, I think a lot of that, if I can say this, I think a lot of it are demons that are trying to get us to trust them. And they will, they say the devil is a liar. Well, he'll tell you enough truth so that you trust him. And then he'll lie to you, and you won't know what's the lie or what's the truth. So when you think you're talking to Uncle Bob, who's deceased, you may be talking to a demon. And that demon is going to tell you some things that are true so that you can trust it. And then when you think everything is fine and normal and you're in a good relationship and you can understand who you go to Uncle Bob, and he tells you something that is going to destroy your life, except you don't know it. You don't know it until it's way too late. So that's why you don't want to, you just don't want to mess with the occult. I've always stayed away from it. Someone asked me, I was on a podcast last week talking about some of this stuff, and they said, well, Stan, have you ever had an occult experience? And of course, I talk about prayers and answers to prayer and miracles and things like that. But I said, or no, the question was, well, when you were writing Wizard Clip, did you have any spiritual things that happened to you, or hauntings or stuff like that? And that was a good question, because I have a very good friend, John Springer. He's a filmmaker in Minneapolis. And John has historically done horror movies until someone on his set, a really close friend on his set, died in the middle of filming a horror movie. And he said, that's it, I'm done. And he didn't do any more. He went back and shot just regular commercials after that. But I said, no, I have not had it because, and I don't have it here to show you exactly. Well, I could show you something. Hold on, let me grab this. I said, and the reason I haven't is because, and I picked up, and I happened to have a crucifix, and I picked up is because I've always had a crucifix near me when I was writing this sort of stuff, and I pray a rosary every day, and I said, and I'm just really careful about what I believe. My wife, on my website, go to stanwilliams.com, you'll see another banner right below the Wizard Clip Haunting. There's a banner that says Angel Quest. And several years ago, a friend told me about a lineup of monasteries. These are ancient monasteries. Some of them is 1,500 years old, lined up from Ireland to Israel. And they're in a perfectly straight line. And that's not the only unique thing. They're all dedicated to Saint Michael the Archangel. And Saint Mike, and all of these places were originally dedicated to pagans before the Christian era. And today they're all Christian monasteries or ruins of Christian monasteries, and they're in a perfectly straight line. And I was able to pilgrim it. I went from one to the other. It took me 21 days, and I did a documentary that you can watch for free on YouTube about these monasteries. And the question is, why are they in a straight line? So anyhow, that's some of it, there's a lot of paranormal stories there about St. Michael appearing and doing one thing or the other. So my wife found this at a gift shop. This is a statue of St. Michael the Archangel. So this is sitting near my computer all the time too. So I try to stay away from the occult, but I sure believe that it's true, and I really believe the supernatural is true, and I believe paranormal exists. I think I'm wise enough to not be foolish enough to just have fun with it, right? But to be wise as serpents and peaceful as doves, or something like that.
Got a question from T-Bone in our audience tonight. He's asking, Stan, what do you theorize then about the aliens bad versus aliens good theory?
What? I don't know that theory. Tell me, what does that mean?
Well, a lot of people believe that aliens are bad, evil. If anything comes from the stars, it's got to be demonic. And there are other people who are claiming that, aliens are here to help better humanity.
Well, both could be true. I mean, both could be true. Angels, throughout history, you have examples. In fact, if you watch my Angel Quest documentary, you'll hear stories about this. You have angels that visit us, and you have demons that visit us. And you could think that they are aliens. They're not of this world. They're not of this material world, at least. They're of our supernatural world, but of course we don't associate the supernatural world as being part of our earth. We think of it as up in the skies. But I think they're both. I think we're visited both by angels and by demons, and we get to choose which one we're going to believe and follow. So bad alien, good alien. Yeah. And this made me tie into the UFO thing. I don't know. Some people have suggested that some of this UFO stuff are demons. And I've read also people think now they're angels. I don't know, but I'm real interested in find out what happens.
My theory on it is both.
Yeah.
Okay. It is both, number one, but number two, I think we always, as humans, because it's really the only thing we can do, is try and put a human perspective on everything.
Right.
It's like, if they're coming from outer space, how did they get here? And we're trying to use the most modern scientific theories and even antiquated theories to see how these craft are getting here. How are they traveling millions upon millions of light years away to get here? Theorizing once again. And I think maybe our science and our thinking isn't as advanced as we think it is.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree. It's so funny. What is it? Just go back 150 years and we were still bleeding people to try to heal them. So this whole idea that, during the global warming and all that sort of stuff, and people say, oh, the science is settled. And I'm thinking, I'm sorry, science is never settled. We don't know 1% of what's going on in the universe. We're always learning. Science is always discovering. Every day we're creating new hypotheses to try to explain what's going on. And I think sometimes we do. I think there is a melding that we don't fully understand between the scientific world and the spiritual world. Quantum mechanics is a great example of this. I love reading about entanglements and all the experiments they do in quantum mechanics, because quantum mechanics is one of those things where, if you run a quantum experiment and you walk away from it and you come back and look at the results, you get one thing. But if you stand there and watch it or observe it or try to put a measuring instrument in the process, you get a different result. And of course, a lot of physicists are philosophers. Remember, physics originally were philosophers. So philosophizing and physics really are the same discipline. And because of materialism, we've kind of split them apart. But people are talking about it's the consciousness. The idea of human consciousness can change the results of a physical experiment. And consciousness is a spiritual concept. It's not a material concept. People keep trying to understand and explain consciousness in terms of spiritual terms or atoms and molecules in the brain, but it's not. It goes way beyond that. It's just the presence of consciousness in a quantum experiment can change the observable result. And that's freaky. And what was it? Einstein called it didn't he call it? Or someone like Einstein called it the freaky. Oh, there was a term like freaky. It's the freaky result because they couldn't explain it otherwise.
So where does our consciousness go when we are done here on this planet? What happens to our consciousness? What do you think?
That's a good consciousness. I never thought. That's a great question. We have souls. As Christians, we're taught that we have souls, and that souls will live forever once they're created in the womb of our mother. But that souls will exist. Although the Catholic Church teaches, and this is odd, this is something, although I'm Catholic, I can't always get my head around stuff that the church believes, but it says that we're going to be resurrected, and in heaven, we will have physical bodies. And I think, well, that's going to be strange. I wonder what we're going to look like. It's a little scary. But consciousness, that's a good question. We have souls, and religion teaches us that souls exist and go on. But consciousness is an awareness of who we are. I can see myself in a mirror. So, sometimes dogs see dogs in mirrors, but they don't usually recognize themselves in the mirror. We recognize ourselves. That's consciousness, that I have a self-awareness of who I am, and I can see myself in a mirror. But what happens after? Maybe the consciousness and the soul are the same thing. That's an interesting concept. I never thought of that.
Well, you know what? Sometimes I come up with a deep question just like that. It works for me. But when we look at the scarier side of the paranormal, okay, the shadow beings, the entities that we see at the foot of our bed. I could tell you a freaky story. I laugh about it, but I could tell you a freaky story. In my own room one night after this show, I go to bed. I crawl in, and I'm somebody who does the stupid thing. I sleep with my feet outside the blanket. And then all of a sudden, I felt my right leg, like somebody was picking up my right leg.
Yeah.
And I felt it going up. And I remember turning and saying, do you mind? I'm really tired. Not tonight. And they put my leg back down. And it makes me wonder, because it's kind of freaky. I knew it wasn't a person. I knew it was some sort of entity, but the fact that the entity actually listened was actually kind of polite, I think. But it's still a little crazy when we have people having these experiences that are totally out of their control. Sometimes it affects their bodies. Sometimes it affects their minds. What do you think of all that?
When I was a kid, maybe 7 or 8, I used to have frequent nightmares where everything was exaggerated. Now, I wasn't on recreational drugs, but from what I read about being on an LSD trip, it almost sounded like that. My dad would sit up with me, and if he sat up in his chair and took a step toward me, it sounded, I had the concept that he was a giant moving toward me, and he was speeding and running at me, and everything was exaggerated, just super, super sensitive. I think a lot of times we have dreams and we have events, and I'm not saying that a dream is not, I believe that dreams can be supernatural, paranormal events and experiences. And there are dreams in the Wizard clip that I totally believe happened, and they were real. They weren't part of the imagination. So something like you explained about your leg, oh, I can totally believe that that's real. What it was, I don't know, but it's something that you have to take seriously. And you probably, if it's scary, you probably want to avoid it, I would think. Although there's places, when an angel shows up before Mary at the incarnation, first thing the angel says is, "Fear not." Or when Jesus shows up to his apostles after walking through the wall, there's a paranormal experience. He says, "Fear not." So they had to be scared. They had to be really scared. So maybe being scared isn't always bad. Maybe it's good. It's like they say, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So be scared, but be wise. Yeah, I have dreams. I have dreams, and I always try to figure out what they mean afterwards. Most of the time, I can't figure them out, but they're real to me. I mean, I feel they're real. It's like there's a realm surrounding us where spirit beings habitate, or they inhabit. Spirit beings inhabit the realm, the invisible realm around us. And we have to constantly be careful and be aware and try to discern. And like I say, stay away from the evil, run toward the good, if you can figure it out, which is which.
But is it all evil?
No, I don't think it's all evil. No. Is that what you asked? Was it all evil?
Yes, that's what I asked.
No. I think a lot of it is good. I mean, one of the movies I worked on years ago was with Will Smith, and it was his the story of his Jaden, his son, stars in it. What's it called?
Is that
something?
The Pursuit of Happiness?
No. This is the one where. What's it called? It was. They end up on a world, and Jaden ends up fighting a monster and stuff like that. I forget. It's total fantasy. Anyhow, that was one of the scripts that I was involved in analyzing and looking at and stuff like that. And Will had the concept that you did not need to fear anything. You just, fear was a make-believe concept. And I wasn't the only one that told him this, but I said, no, fear, like evil, is something that once you figure out that it's evil, fear is warning you of danger. And throughout the movie, when the movie came, After Earth is the name of the movie, After Earth, starring Jaden and Will, they kind of co-starred it. And I said, and the movie tries to portray the idea that fear is something that you do not have to fear. And yet in the movie, they have these killer monsters that are trying to kill Jaden and Will and everybody else. And in the movie, they're real, real characters. And so there was this discontinuity. There was this cognitive dissonance in the story because they kept trying to get across the concept that you didn't have to fear fear. And I think this came from people like Will and Tom. Who's the star? Anyhow, there's some of these Hollywood actors are so talented, they can do anything. And so they have very little fear about anything. If they want to accomplish something, they go and do it, and they accomplish it better than most of us mortals could. And so they don't have fear, and they almost kind of believe that fear is make-believe, and we don't need to fear anything. But yet fear warns us not to run through a red light. We don't run red lights because we fear that we might get killed or injured. We don't walk off a cliff. If we meet a crazy guy with a gun in the street, the smart thing to do is run away because we're fearful. So fear is an important concept, but I don't always believe that fear is always evil. Fear can cause us to run toward what is good and away from what is evil.
We only have about a minute left with you tonight, and I want to say a big thank you, Mr. Stan Williams, for coming on Spaced Out Radio. Tell everybody where they can find your books.
Well, stanwilliams.com. You mentioned I've all my recent projects. We've got banners at the top, and there's a bunch of products at the bottom. I do three things. My moral premise book. I do story consulting in Hollywood and for novels. and that's the moral premise link you'll see on stanwilliams.com. And then I have some books distribution, and that's Nineveh's Crossing. And then my creative effort is something called SWC Films. And I make movies and I write books, and it all comes under the creative banner. But that's all on the website, plus banners of my recent projects like Angel Quest and Wizard Clip Haunting.
Stan Williams, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio. A great conversation indeed. Coming up in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off. Then we're going to get to the weird news of the week with Terry Hall.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Great job tonight, Stan. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. It was great meeting you and talking with you about all this crazy stuff that we.
I had a lot of fun with you, my friend. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll be sure when I see this on YouTube, I'll be sure to send a link out to all my followers.
Go right ahead. Take care.
Godspeed.
Good night.
Stop now! You're under arrest! Hands up! Don't move!
Don't get caught without your Spaced Out Radio merchandise. We have t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, socks, hats, stickers, and so much more. Whatever you're looking for, we have you covered. Why just be a fan of the paranormal when you can look the part? We don't have ugly merch, folks. Check out the Spaced Out Radio store. Find the link in the description below.
Dirty filth. Dirty filth. Dirty filth.
Object is heading north 045 degrees. It's definitely not a plane. It seems to be tethered to something. Is that a banner, Joe? Caribou Con. Does anyone know what Caribou Con is?
Caribou Con, one of the BC Caribou region's best-kept secrets. Until now. Join our panel of renowned paranormal experts for a weekend of fun and intriguing presentations. Go to cariboucon.com to book or inquire now.
Over here. Look at this.
Discover Spaced Out Radio on all your favorite platforms. We're live every single night with the best in UFOs, cryptids, paranormal, and the unexplained. And you can find us on all your favorite platforms. Head over to Instagram for behind the scenes and daily weirdness, TikTok for quick mind-bending clips, Facebook for community discussions, and X for real-time updates and hot takes. Wherever you scroll, Spaced Out Radio is there. So go search Spaced Out Radio on every platform, hit follow, and turn on notifications so you never miss a single episode. The weird is waiting. See you there.
The McNeil House is one of several buildings at the 108-mile heritage site said to be haunted by spirits of a time long forgotten. But would you stay the night? Along with guided ghost tours and paranormal investigations, Haunted 108 is offering a chance to spend the entire night inside the historic McNeil House by booking one of our B&B style sleepovers, where you can experience the hauntings firsthand, meet the resident ghost cat, and witness unusual activity. If you dare to turn history into a night you'll never forget, book your spot now at haunted108.com. Spots are limited. Will you be brave enough?
We bring in Terry Hall, hanging on out. How's the mustachioed one?
Doing well. How's the beard and knowledge this evening?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
I got some funny stories for you tonight.
Well, we got a couple things we need to touch on this evening. One I think involves plagiarism, but we're going to figure that one out eventually, right?
Sure. We have 15 seconds. Thank you to our super chatters, Cat Chaser, Kitty Cattywhack, T-Bone, and KJM. Appreciate your love and support, everybody. Thank you very much to everybody who has hit thumbs up tonight. Blackthorn, how you doing? Here comes the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We greatly appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. We want to say hello to all of you listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network, our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Grabble. Grabble is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. For some background information, I am a 24-year-old male. I live in northern Canada, and this experience happened to me when I was 22. I was heading back to my house from my friend's place. My friend lived about 18 kilometers away from the city I live in at the time this experience occurred. It was a cold summer night, and I was heading down the highway on my motorcycle. One part of this highway gets really dark, and you can barely even see the road. This was unfortunately my downfall, as my motorcycle hit a really bad pothole in the road and wrecked. I was injured and in shock. I got up and started walking. It was pitch black, the type of darkness where you can barely see your hands in front of you. I could hear the usual sounds of nature, wolves howling, foxes crying, even the sounds of coyotes in the woods surrounding the road. I had walked for 4 hours, and I finally got to the corner of the highway that you take to head into town. This part of the road
has a fair stretch of streetlights, which give you an extra sense of relief and comfort. As I walked along the now well-lit road, I started to get really tired from how long I had walked, but the pain from my accident kept me awake and made me desperate to get home soon. I was just about to pass a local construction company's yard when I noticed the air had gotten really still and quiet. So quiet that you could hear a pin drop from a mile away. Then I heard a noise that surprised me. It sounded like a splashing noise, which would make sense. There was a marsh near this part of town. I stopped and waited to hear another sound. Yet, another splash came from the darkness. I froze and I felt my blood start rushing from fear and adrenaline. I reached for my phone and activated the flashlight feature to get a better look at the source of the noise. What I saw next was utterly bone-chilling. What my flashlight illuminated was an ashy figure that was crouched on a boulder near the edge of the marsh. It looked emaciated and very unnatural. Shaking at this point, I called out and said, What the hell are you? It slowly turned its head and stared back at me with a haunting, empty eye. It seemed to glow a deep crimson color. Then it let out this horrifying scream that sounded like a cross between the roar of a mountain lion and the scream of the ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings. I started running as fast as my body would let me go, as I could hear it splashing behind me, no doubt chasing me. I pulled out my knife, preparing to fight for my life, but then it stayed just out of reach for me. When I hit the streetlights, it seemed not to want to hit the light. I could see it slowly skulking in a predatory style. But just as I thought I was going to lose my life to this creature for sure, a pair of headlights came over the horizon and shone on the creature. It then cried one more time before running off into the night. I haven't seen it ever again, but one thing is for sure. I make sure I always walk with a friend anywhere at night.
Thank you, Swampy, for another great story. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller, hit subscribe, ring that bell. Thousands of stories for you to listen to each and every day and night. Let's get to the weird news of the week. Terry Hall's on board.
Terry Hall's got a mustache, standing by the pole. Curled up like a question mark, got secrets to be told. From you folks to Bigfoot tracks, ghosts that won't behave. He's going me to the headlines like a cosmic wave. Weird news of the week, yes, strange, yes, wild. For the answers of reality to your space ball. With Terry Hall and Paul, this is stack in the sprawl. I'm Space Out Radio, let the very stars touch it all.
There he is, everybody. The mustachioed wonder himself, Terry Hall. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, man. That little green guy keeps crawling up on the screen for some reason. Don't know what keeps happening with that dude. He just pops in here all of a sudden. So we were talking earlier today, and you said that you thought that you might like to broach a subject this evening, Dave. So I'm just going to let you kind of fly off by the handle, and let's see where we land.
Well, I do want to talk about something because, you know, sometimes if you don't beat your own drum a little bit, you know, nobody really figures out that it's you being somebody who has been a mainstay in this conversation. And how I got to this point was researcher Nicole Sackich, good fan of this show. All right. She's got nice hair too.
And she's been doing this. She's been involved in this industry for a long time.
Long time. Anyways, she sends me a message where YouTuber Jesse Michaels, who we have put questions on a number of topics about how he has kind of come out of nowhere the last few years and all of a sudden taken the UFO world by storm, getting all the big name interviews of whistleblowers and so on and so forth. And you know, a lot of people have tried to break down his history and everything. And, you know, hey, if he wants to cover this subject, go ahead. But one of the subjects that he brought out on a video today, Nicole pointed out to me. And it's something we have been telling our audience for years. And it's how to summon UFOs. And Jesse went through an entire list of how to do this. He made a pretty good video on it because he is a talented guy. and is surrounded by very talented people, and that happens, you know. And I was looking at this and I'm like, this is exactly what we have been telling pretty much almost verbatim for years. People wondering, when Skywatcher came out, when they were talking about this psionics, because they had to change the name of absolutely everything. They couldn't just go with what people had been calling these subjects for years, like for instance, whether it's summoning or CE5. No, they had to change it to psionics. They had to give their own name and perspective to make it sound like it was theirs. And I remember calling out Jake Barber on YouTube one day, on X one day. He was one of the heads of Skywatcher. They said, can you not admit that people have been able to summon for decades, centuries, millennia? Like, you're not the first here. And he graciously admitted, he goes, you're right. You're right. And so Jesse,
that was the whole dog whistle thing with Skywatch, right?
Apparently that worked, the dog whistle. But here's the thing with summoning. So people wondering what summoning UFOs is. Well, let's tell you. It is using your own consciousness to bring craft in and give you a little bit of a light show in the sky. Now, a lot of people will not believe when I say that, but it is possible. It's been done. Terry, you have an instance where you actually got it on record, on film, of me doing that for you guys. Tell that story.
We were in the Uinta Basin, and it was kind of a strange day, all day that day. It seemed like that something at 11 minutes past the hour that day, something weird would happen. I mean, it was an all day thing. So it was well in the evening. Matter of fact, it was after 11 o'clock, 11:11 to be exact. My phone rings. I'm sitting in the back of the RV. We were on a research trip. Phone rings. It's Dave. Keep in mind, Dave's in Canada. I'm in Utah. Dave asked me, he says, hey, what direction are you facing right now? I said, Dave, I'm in the back of an RV. He said, I know, but what direction are you guys facing? I said, well, I don't know. Let me step outside and look. He said, he said, as soon as you step out the door, I want you to look up to the north. So I happen to have a psionics camera with me. Now, a psionics camera is a very low light camera, basically night vision in full color. And it really brings the night sky to life. So Dave said, I want you to look up to the north when you go outside. Well, I step outside, camera's on, I look up into the north, and there are pairs, and I thought that they were binary stars. There were two pairs. There were like this and like this. So two horizontal, one on top of the other, two vertical, one to the right and one to the left. Well, I panned around about 110 degrees, and then as I panned back, when I got back to the area to the north, those pairs were now all lined up on top of one another. And the one on top, we'll call it number one, started to blink and slowly faded out like it was going away from you. The second one did it, the third one did it, and then the fourth one did it. But Dave, as the crow flies, we were almost 1,500 miles away from one another, but he knew where it was going to be. He knew exactly where it was going to be. He knew what it was going to be. And and a matter of fact, the following evening, before it even occurred, hours before it even occurred, Dave said, at this time this evening, I want you to go outside and I want you to look to the east. Another one. right there. All of this has been documented. It's all on film. But it wasn't a rare occurrence with Dave. He's done that to me several times before. As a matter of fact, our good friend Tom King has recently tried the summoning technique that Dave uses and has had very good success with it. So it does work, but Dave's the real deal. He's done it to me twice that on that one trip, twice in one trip.
It is kind of trippy, isn't it? Pun intended. But the reason why I bring that up is that's just people are always like, well, where's the proof? You actually got the proof on video, right?
And it wasn't just me on location. There were 5 other people with me on that trip.
Excellent. Yes, there were. So the reason why I bring all of this up is, you know, there are people out there who charge a lot of money for this. Okay, to go out on a weekend excursion, to call in UFOs. You don't have to pay for this. You could do this out of your backyard of your home. Okay. And the way Jesse Michaels put it, I think is a little bit too complicated because he gets into remote viewing and astral travel with it. You don't need to do that. So I'm going to give you the explanation once again, if you want to summon UFOs. Now, remember, sometimes it takes days to make that communication. And you don't just spend 10, 15 minutes going outside, staring up at the skies. Where the hell are you? Why aren't you here? Somebody fly by. That's not how it works. Okay? This is how it works. And if you practice this over and over, you will all of a sudden start to see things in the sky that will be picking up your signal. Because when you do this, it's like shooting. You remember Kmart? Everybody remembers Kmart. Okay.
Blue light specials, baby.
The blue light special. It's like shooting a Kmart blue light special beam way into the sky. Okay. And you take that beam and let's say you shoot it 1 billion miles into the sky. You follow that up. Before you do that, you go outside, you meditate a little bit, you clear your conscious, clear your soul. So the only thing that you have going on in your heart and soul right at this point is love. Love and light, man. Believe it or not, okay, you don't have to be a hippie to do this. All right. You don't have to be a tree hugger to do this. Just clear everything, every piece of stress you have in your body. If you had a tough work day, you got into an argument with your spouse, your kids are acting up. Okay. You burnt dinner, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. You go outside, you meditate to clear your consciousness. And then all of a sudden, what's going to happen is as you start to connect with what's up in the sky, you just say, out of peace, love, and light, can you please show me where you are? And if you're a religious person or you're a God believer, you can say, out of God's peace, love, and light. That's what I do. Can you please show me where you are? And all of a sudden, as you're looking into the sky, you're feeling full, you're feeling love, you're feeling your consciousness free and clear. Your eyes will always gaze into one area. For some reason, you don't know why, but your eyes will take you. You could be looking all over the place. And all of a sudden, let's say you're looking at the constellation Cassiopeia. You go look towards the Big Dipper. It doesn't matter. Your eyes turn back. There's something telling you that there is something at Cassiopeia. I'm just using this as an example. And then you start saying, out of God's peace, love, and light, or out of peace, love, and light, whatever you believe, can you please show us where you are? And you meditate on that area where your eyes are now stuck. And eventually, if you give it enough time, not 5 minutes, not 10 minutes, sometimes not even 20, 30 minutes. Okay. And if you, instead of looking up, make sure you get a nice comfy lawn chair that you could sit in to look into that spot.
Sleeping bag, lawn chair, cot, something
Absolutely.
you can kick back on. Absolutely.
Eventually, something will go up. And it's not going to be a satellite. but it's going to pick up your Kmart blue light special because you're going to send that message. Can you please show me where you are? You're going to take that Kmart blue light special light and you're going to shoot it 1 billion miles into the sky. And the reason why you want to say out of peace, love, and light, because you never know if the bad aliens or the bad dudes are looking down. You don't want them. Okay? A lot of people will sit there and say, I don't care if they're good or bad. I just want to see and experience something. Oh, but you do. You don't go into the forest.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't go into the forest, Terry, and say, I want to have a face-to-face encounter with a bear, because you don't know what kind of bear you're going to get. It's either going to see you and take off, or it's going to say, hey, that looks like a meal. You wouldn't do something stupid like that. It's the same thing with UFOs.
Well, we've been trying to lay down a methodology for this type of thing, Dave, and we did we organized a group summoning. And prior to that, for the entire week, I was out at that location. I was preparing that location every time I was there. A clear intent. Hey, we're going to be sending you guys an invitation to come and visit us here this weekend. And every day I was out there, I was building up. And then right prior to that, I floated a drone so that everyone who came to this summoning knew what we looked like from the air, what they were going to be seeing from altitude. I wanted everyone at that summoning to know what they were going to be looking at. So when we sent that invitation, look for this. This is where we're at. That was that Kmart blue light special that you told me to program into this whole thing.
Absolutely.
And in preparing the location, I had lots of different seating arrangements. You could lay down, you could get on a cot, you could get in a hammock, you could sit in a chair, you could stand there if you wanted to. But everyone who came into the yard that evening was a very clear intent.
Absolutely. So this is what Jesse Michaels says. Okay. You sit down, close your eyes, and remote view your way through the cosmos. Zoom out into the Milky Way, push in on the solar system, drop through Earth's atmosphere, pin your city, your street, the roof you're under, and the chair you're sitting in. You don't have to do any of that. The premise is that UFOs are directly coupled to the observer's consciousness. That is true. And you're feeding a visual vector their navigation system could lock into. Not necessary. Google Earth beforehand sharpens the mental zoom. You don't need it. A low power laser in the night sky could tag your location. Don't need it. But never near an aircraft. That's a federal crime. The warning attached to all of this comes with a bad intent or negative emotion, and the contact experience will amplify it back to you. That's where the peace, love, and light comes in. Mm-hmm. Coherent thought sequencing is like sending out your address by visually guiding the craft to your location through your mind's eye. Yeah, your mind's eye is you, not your physical address. They don't know you're at 123 4th Street, okay, which is the third house from the corner. Look for the Snoopy windmill on top of your roof. You don't need that. All right. He goes on to say, you are the pin drop on their map broadcasting into the cosmos like a laser pointer, aka the blue light special from Kmart. UFOs are directly coupled to their observer's consciousness. True. You're linking both the ship's mind and its navigation system and feeding it a visual vector it can lock into. That's what the blue light special is for. So if you're going through a rough time or you have any sort of ulterior motives, you'll probably get burned. Those negative emotions inside of you might get amplified by the contact experience. Makes it a little bit more complicated than what it is, but anybody can do this. You don't have to pay for it. It doesn't cost anything except your time and your patience. And if it doesn't work on night number 1, try it on night number 2 again. Doesn't work on night number 2, try it on night number 3. Sometimes there's nothing flying by. Other times you're going to get hits and you're going to see things that maybe you do not recognize in the sky. And that is summoning, my friends. You know, it's not a genius thing. It's nothing that is going to hurt you or harm you unless you call in the bad dudes. Don't do that. I don't
If you follow the proper procedure.
That's right. Terry Hall and the Weird News of the Week comes back right after this. We're going to get into some weird stories from around the world.
This is Spaced Out Radio. Your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy, we're clear.
You know, I got a buddy of mine who lives down in New Mexico, and they had this thing called an Earth house, or an Earth ship, actually, is what it's called.
Okay.
Off-grid place, heats and cools. It's really cool joint, right? Him and his wife, that's what they do every evening. They go out into their yard, they sit there under the stars, and they cast their intent out into the others. And they've had some pretty unique experiences there. But what he's told me is the key for him and his wife is just consistency.
Yes.
Clear intent and being consistent in their actions. And honestly, that makes sense to me. And speaking with Tom, he just got really interested in it and figured, you know what, I'm just going to try it. Why not? I mean, he's got all the great equipment to document what he does. So if he did get results, you know, he could document them. And I'll be daggone if he didn't. And now, put off with the whole Stanford group. They've been teaching, remote viewing and step-by-step, very clear instructions since the 60s or 70s, I think. Excuse me. The whole mapping your brain to steer an airplane or a spacecraft, they've been developing that technology since the early 90s. I mean, you sit there and you think, turn left, they're mapping your brain, turn left. Okay, they've got a picture of what your brain's doing when you're thinking turn left. They plug that into the computer. Before too long, you've got up, down, left, right, forward, backwards. It's all programmed in. Now you can think of your plane to do what you want to do. They've been doing that since the 90s. So even in military technology, they're using this stuff, Dave. But
absolutely,
there are, websites that are out there that have instructions for summonings, and it's a very common term that everyone uses now. There's CE, close encounters of the first, second, third, and fourth kind. And now, according to someone else in this industry and in this field, there's the fifth kind, and that's summoning. In that one, the instructions are a bit different from what Dave offers, but I think that with Dave's experience and the way that he does this, he's trying to prevent people from having things occur to them that can be very negative in their aspects, like hitchhikers. You get a hitchhiker attached to you, and you can deal with it for literally for years. But now, Dave, I've also told you about our poltergeist that we have, Howard.
Yes.
Howard loves to hide things. And it's kind of that mental picture thing, because if you'll just stop here in the house, clear your thoughts and just say, okay, Howard, you don't need my car keys. I really need them right now. Can you kind of give me an idea where they're at? And you'll get a mental picture on your bed under a pillow, or in the kitchen on the counter under a newspaper. But you'll get a very clear mental image, and 9 times out of 10, that's where you're going to find what you're looking for.
I love it. It's that simple. Really is that simple.
But this goes back to the whole thing of let's give credit where credit is due, and that has always been a problem in this area of study, is giving credit where credit's due and being humble about it and just playing fair. People don't like to work together in this field for some reason, and it's always bothered me.
Joe's saying, Dave told me to stand up and point my. Joe's saying, Dave told me to stand up and point my camera at the woods one time in a certain direction. There was weird stuff in that photo. There were 3 sets of eyes that were way off the ground. I remember that, Joe. That was pretty awesome. You hated me before that moment. You hated me.
So, guys, if you...
Harry, we're sorry to cut you off. We're coming back in 10 seconds. Thank you to T-Bone Kitty, KJM, and Cat Chaser for the super chats. Here we go, everybody. Here comes the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. We're going to jump right in to the weird news of the week with our good friend Terry Hall. Terry, thank you so much for being here. And I got a nice one for you right off the bat, my friend. When you go to this convenience store, you got to watch out for this sharpshooter of a dog. You have to. Police responded to reports of a shotgun blast at a convenience store, sounding like the opening of countless American crime movies. But when the cops in Nebraska responded to such an event, they found an unusual culprit. It was a dog. Yeah, reports say the police in the town of Scottsbluff were called out to a local store recently after reports of a blast involving a shotgun. Upon arrival, they found a truck with a blast damage in one of its doors, and a woman who had been struck in the arm by a pellet from the blast. However, the investigation showed there was no human causing this. A canine caused this incident. When it was revealed that the blast happened as the vehicle had pulled up to the store, a dog had been moving from one side of its back seat to the other. Somehow the dog got its paw with the trigger and it went boom. Yeah, apparently there was a live round chambered in it, fired it, damaged the vehicle, and striking a female passerby. Victim was taken to hospital, though not seriously injured. It is illegal in Nebraska to drive with a loaded pointy stick in your vehicle, and this person's going to get into a lot of trouble. Your thoughts, Terry? We'll get you to put your microphone down, Terry.
I think the next story that we got is going to come in handy for at least the interrogation of the pet. But why would you drive around with a round jacked in a shotgun of all things sitting in your back seat? That's crazy to begin with. But growing up in LA, we kind of saw drive-bys when they were coming. Drive-by, get behind a palm tree, run in the house. I spent more time on the floor. Matter of fact, I grew up so much crawling around on the floor to keep under the windows that, it was nice to move out of LA. But man, if we would have had to worry about pit bulls doing drive-bys, that would have been something else.
Terrible. Would have been terrible.
But now this next tool that is a new development from the Chinese, Dave, how much would you pay to be able to have an actual conversation with your pet? Cat, dog.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, it seems now that there is a controversial AI-powered pet translator boasting a 95% accuracy rate. While most commercial pet translator apps are largely created with entertainment in mind, Hangzhou-based startup tech Ming Zhao claims that its new pet translator is the real deal. As long as the pet is wearing the device around its neck, the translator can allegedly recognize vocalizations, emotions, and behavioral language with an accuracy rate approaching 95%. Now we're going to be able to communicate with the animal world, Dave. What do you think about that?
I guess my speculation on it would be, how do you know that it's accurate? Like, it may come out as translation, the dog wants to go outside, or your cat really does love you. And then it means the polar opposite, that your dog really just wants a belly rub and your cat is secretly planning your death.
Well, the thing is this is as it hit the airways, it started out as just a startup with some incredible funding right off the get. But now the AI-powered pet translator was tested earlier this month with over 10,000 units being dispersed. And according to the feedback that they got, the accuracy rate was incredible. Now, I tell you what, you know my dog Sophia.
Yes.
She is a husky mix. This dog is so stinking smart, she has figured out how to tell me no. I've always wanted to get those little buttons, with the words, and I know that she could figure them out. But according to what the base unit price of this thing is going to be, I bet you they're going to be a pretty good smash, because for $118, you'll be able to have a conversation with your cat, with your dog, whatever the case may be. That one struck me as just not so much funny, weird, or odd, but I thought that was just really cool, because you know me, Dave, I love my horses. I love anything. I mean, I've got a weakness for four legs. So if this thing really works, who knows what secrets of the universe we're going to discover.
Right? All right. Here's one for you, Terry. All right. I don't know how you'll feel about this one. I really don't. Okay. You know that idiot tourist who was visiting Hawaii and decided to throw a big seal, or pardon me, a big rock at that monk seal?
At that monk seal, yeah.
That stirred up a lot of controversy. Well, now apparently, life's not too good for this moron who did this, okay? The tourist from Washington State has pleaded not guilty to charges accusing him of hurling a coconut-sized rock at an endangered Hawaiian monk seal and was ordered to stay away from Hawaiian beaches. Igor Litvinchuk from Covington, Washington, was in court in Honolulu, where he pleaded not guilty to charges of harassing and attempting to harass a protected animal. U.S. Magistrate Judge Ram Trader allowed him to remain free pending the criminal case, but ordered him to stay away from beaches and marine wildlife while in Hawaii. You're not going to the beach. You understand that? Trader said. Litvinchuk declined to comment after the hearing. One of his defense attorneys, though, Miles Brainer, said previously his client was trying to protect sea turtles and has been physically assaulted, threatened, and doxxed. Earlier this month, a witness recorded what prosecutors say is a video of him throwing a rock at a Hawaiian monk seal in Maui Beach. He later made arrangements to surrender in Seattle as special agents with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration were seeking his arrest. The video drew widespread condemnation and demands for prosecution in Hawaii, including from Hawaii's mayor. Scientists identified the seal as an adult male known as R404. Thing could be in a Star Wars movie, R404. Okay. But now they're worried about the fact that this guy got doxxed that the prosecution, or pardon me, the defense is trying to make him. He's a nice guy. He was trying to protect the turtles, but it really shows the power of the internet today, where if people absolutely can't stand what you did, they will go out of their way to ruin your life.
Oh, absolutely.
They will.
Absolutely. That's
I
been a
hope
big
to
thing for a
God I
long
never
time.
piss people off that badly.
And that's a lot of problem with a lot of subjects, including the UFO topic. It just gets boiled down to its basic clickbait stuff. And I don't know if they started the whole deal about that guy, but I tell you what, as soon as it hit the airwave, the hatred just mounted and
Oh,
mounted and
yeah.
mounted. Once that hit, it was, lights out for that cat.
I wanna
Whether
be
he
that guy.
deserved it or not, whether he was trying to protect whatever he was trying to protect, he went about it in the wrong way.
Yes, he did.
At least standing on the outside looking in, from what it appeared to us, it was something that I don't think I would have done. Right? One of the best photographs of a sea turtle I ever got was in Hawaii, on a scuba dive trip. Just in a couple, several incredible shots. So, I can understand the empathy if that's what the guy was really doing, but like I said, he just went about it in the wrong way. Dave, did you know one of your favorite things that you've been looking for, as a matter of fact, on your birthday, came and paid you a special visit, has been seen on Broadway?
Who's that?
Bigfoot.
Oh, no.
Bigfoot.
Don't tell me Broadway's ruining Sasquatch.
Bigfoot had his Broadway premiere, Dave, in a show that ran 90 minutes. And matter of fact, Dave, we're a little bit too late because the tickets have already been sold out. Its run is completely sold out. But Bigfoot is an original off-Broadway musical comedy. A satirical show follows its misunderstood 8-foot-tall Bigfoot framed as a scapegoat by a corrupt, dancing, small-town mayor. Has completed its limited run in New York City Center, and it was a raving success. So yes, Dave, Bigfoot is now on Broadway.
Oh, my. I never thought that would happen.
Now,
never thought that would happen.
You know where we got to go? We're up north. Where do I always go? To our friends
tell me you got
in
something from Florida.
Florida. Here we go with our weekly Florida man story.
Yes.
Okay. So, thong-wearing elderly man didn't do himself any favors by telling an officer to jump rope for me, baby doll. An elderly Florida man had the police called on him 2 times last week for allegedly exposing himself to multiple neighbors at the apartment complex he calls home. So much for living out your days quietly, Dave. On a day last week, a second day in a row the police were called, he was arrested on multiple charges. According to the police, neighbors of the thong-wearing Tyrone James Causey, 79, were increasingly concerned and frustrated with his continued behavior. Reports say he was accused of making lewd gestures that included thrusting his man parts at a woman's doorbell camera during his regular walks around the apartment complex. When the Hollywood, Florida Police Department's officer Savannah Hutchison went to his apartment to speak with him, he said he greeted her at the door wearing a G-string thong, told her he has a right to walk around naked under Florida Statute 800.001, and that it is only illegal in parks and not in public. During the exchange, the elderly man walked around the public, exposing himself in front of the officer, and according to the officer, put lipstick on, began touching himself, and told her to jump rope for me, baby doll. So it doesn't matter the age Florida man is going strong at 79, Dave.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, this isn't a Florida story, but it is intriguing. All right. You know who Robert Fripp is?
Not off the top of my head, sir. I don't.
Okay. King Crimson's Robert Fripp.
Oh, yes. Matter of fact, I do. Yes.
Turned 80 last week. Seems to be doing much better after suffering a heart attack last year. He even gave his first live performance since the incident last month at the Church of Sant'Alestro Martire in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Says, despite the strong recovery, Fripp is still left with a very oddball question. Remember, he had a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly, why were his man parts shaved while he was being treated? He goes, you're concerned with my heart. Fine. What are you going to do? And what are you doing shaving my manscape parts? The guitarist remarked in a vlog last year with his wife, Toya, who was laughing beside him as he recounted the story. Wilcox added that it may had to do with his clearing his body of anything that could harbor germs since he was going in for heart surgery. In an interview, Fripp gave an update on his health and revisited this testicular mystery. I was in A&E. They hooked me up to a monitor. And the next step was this dear man turned up and shaved me, manscaped me. I thought, well, if this is something to do with my heart, why is he shaving me my bees? Then there was never a reason given for why it happened. The man shaved me, didn't tell me, Fripp explained, but he was likely prepped for a cardiac catheterization using the femoral artery in the groin. Very few of the staff spoke English, which led to one or two funny moments, like me taking my pants down for inspection by a matronly nurse who was actually asking what I wanted for lunch. He survived the heart attack, but the mystery of why he was manscaped may haunt him forever.
I've had lots of surgeries from the belly button up, let's say. Never had to have that part shaved. I've even had that type of catheter inserted. Once was in the neck when I was in ICU at one point in time. They went in through my neck for that one. The second time it was done, it was through my chest. Still have the scar right here. It doesn't make any sense why that they would shave the low-hanging fruit for a heart attack, unless that's where they have to go through now to perform the corrective surgery. And if that's the case, I think I'd just let me die, Dave.
Well, it's still a strange one indeed. What do you got for us, Terry?
Well, since you mentioned Italy, let's stay in Italy for a minute. Because for the last few years, a calendar featuring close-ups of young, handsome men in priestly attire have been a perennial Roman souvenir. Actually, it's been over 2 decades now, over 20 years, of sexy Roman priests. So, very attractive men in priestly attire is this calendar. It's the month-to-month calendar. Well, the scandals recently came out. Giovanni Galizia has been one of the cover shot for this so-called sexy priest calendar for many of the last 23 years. In the same photo used year after year, Galizia wears a clerical collar and flashes an enigmatic smile worthy of the Mona Lisa against the granite wall of the church in his native Palermo. It was the smile of an embarrassed kid because I saw my friends in front of me laughing out loud because I was dressed like a priest. As it turns out, Galizia is not a man of the cloth. It's been a hoax the whole time, Dave.
Oh, no.
The calendar is not affiliated with the Vatican. It is the sexy priest calendar. Now it's been renamed to the fake priest calendar.
My goodness. My goodness. My final story for you tonight. During a routine press conference this past Monday, President Donald Trump casually made an announcement that any normal White House would have kicked off days of frenzied coverage, either about a revelatory inflection point in the history of medicine or about the mental wellness of the country's chief executive. The president's apparent claim that there is this new unnamed drug that can bring patients back from the dead.
Yes, I heard about that.
We've taken people that were dead, Trump fermented. We had a person given the last rites, gone. The kids were crying and everything, and started them on this drug, and the person became better. It works. You think we're joking? Yeah, they're not. During both his stints in office, America has become exhaustively accustomed to an extremely well-documented barrage of storytelling from the president that are remarkable even by the already standards of the average politician. The president's representatives often tries to spin his words in certain ways. Perhaps dead didn't actually mean dead, they might argue, but simply the president's colorful way of saying somebody was very sick. In the end, the layers upon layers of these stories just become an impenetrable miasma of bloviation at times. And I'm using the word bloviation because I never get to use that word on this show. So apparently there is this pill out there, Terry, that if you're dead, you take it before you're about to die, and it brings you back to life, much like an Evanescence song.
Dave, I've seen too many movies with that. The Lazarus Effect, Flatliners. I mean, I can mention, none of them ever turn out very well. And my own NDE was something that I would never want to go through again. Never. It was life-changing. It was the most frightened I think I've ever been in my entire life. I woke up from surgery, and this was a recovery from surgery when I woke up. My son told me that I was screaming. He was half a building away as I was in recovery, and he said that I woke up screaming. It was terrifying. So I don't know if I'd want what is that? What are they going to call it? The Lazarus vaccine or something? I mean,
I have
wow.
no idea.
Wow.
I have no idea. But, at least
they did say, I did read a book that said that my son's generation, if he lives to be 90 years old, by the time he gets to be that age, the tech will be of such that death will be a thing of the past.
That'd be kind of cool. Hopefully it arrives before I decide to check on out. Terry, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight for the weird news of the week. We really do appreciate it. As we say goodnight to Terry and hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio at Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Trade has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Good job, Terry Hall.
Hey, did you see that alien headbang? I didn't know aliens could headbang like that. That's pretty cool.
Where are you looking at this?
Tell you what, next time you turn around, let me see if I can get him to come back.
1 second.
Dude, come back over here a minute. Yes, Dave wants to see you. Well, have patience. He'll turn back around. All right. Real quick. You ready?
Yeah. Oh, that guy.
That guy, yeah.
Yeah, I know him.
Mm-hmm. Hey, he said he's waiting to tune in to listen to you on Walters this evening.
Yeah. So quickly, tomorrow night on the show, Varla Ventura will be here for Our Cryptid World. And thank you tonight to T-Bone, Kitty, KJM, Cat Chaser. We are only 21 people away from 30,000. If you haven't hit subscribe, we'd greatly appreciate if you could. All right. We'd love to hit 30,000 by the end of the week. I think it's possible.
I'm going to tune you into a cheat, guys. Look, if you log into Spaced Out on your phone, you also log into Spaced Out on your computer. Not only can you like the show twice every evening, but you can cheat the subscriptions and double subscribe. Shh.
Okay, guys, I got to run. You have a good one, okay? See you tomorrow.
Good night, all.
Hey, buddy, how you doing? Good. You want to say hi to my audience right before I sign out?
This is not Walter. This is Kevin. I'm not sure how well I'd say hi to your audience.
Well, you just did.
Oh, well, hello, audience.
There you go. All right, Kev, we're wrapping things up here. All right. All of you go listen to WABC. I'll be on there in a minute. See you soon, everybody.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.